And so the when Jesus comes around, he clarifies that for them and really makes it clear. Look, I expect you to just give. Period. Somebody needs it, you give it to them. You take care of each other. That's what it means to be in community. And then that we should use our resources to care for others in general. And so, just like the example of the field, you're not supposed to go all the way out to the edge of the field so that if somebody needed that food, they would have the availability of it. And so it's the same for us. Don't use everything that you have so that you can leave room to bless others. Um, and so God calls us on to use our finances, skills, gifts, whatever it is that He's given us for the good of the kingdom. So, starting this week, we're going to go through chapter 19 of Luke. So, if you want to go ahead and open there, we're going to read through verses 1 through 10 first, and then we're going to skip over to 45 through 48. So, we'll just do one verse at a time. Did we start over here last week, or did we start over here? Over there? So we'll start over here. And so if you don't have that many verses, we're just going to do one verse each. So Luke 19, we're just going to read through 1 through 10 first. So Eli, what you got?
Just the first verse?
Just one verse each, yep.
Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through.
A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was the chief of the tax collectors and was wealthy.
He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd.
So he ran ahead and climbed into a spangled fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way.
When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today.
So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly.
All the people saw this and gave some other hands, proud to be the guest of a sinner.
But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount.
Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is the son of Abraham.
All right. So we're going to stop here for now. All right. So first off, was there anything that you guys saw or heard that you thought was interesting, that you had questions about, whatever? How many of you sat there and heard something as you were reading this? All right. So to start off with, do you guys understand what a tax collector was and how that worked in the Roman system? All right. Allie, you were shaking your head. The first one I saw. So go ahead and explain it for us. Okay. Why don't you tell us what you do now? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so Rome puts out the work of collecting taxes to different people.
They weren't always honest. That's how they got paid.
Yeah, exactly.
That was their income.
Yeah, yeah. And so they could collect a little bit over what the tax was. So if I'm supposed to go over to Hayden and collect $10, I could legally say I need $11. Okay? Because and there was no problem with that, because it was, as long as I got my 10, then to give to the Roman government, then that's all I needed. And so, but like Casey was pointing out, they didn't always just collect what they needed to get by. So in some cases they might say, okay, well the tax is $10, but you got to pay me $100. Didn't matter. He still has to pay me. It doesn't matter that the Roman tax is only 10. He still has to pay me 100. And so these guys are making a killing off of others. All right.
Well,
and
they were also viewed as traitors too, because they were working for the Roman government.
Right. Now I don't know if, like, with the other nations that Rome subdued, if they looked at it the same way, but absolutely they looked at it like that with the Jews. It would make sense for other countries to look at their people like that the same way, but especially with the Jews. I mean, yeah, the Romans had come in and had conquered them, And especially if it was a Jewish person in particular, that made it even worse because now you're betraying your own people to feed this government. And what does it say about Zacchaeus? Is he just a regular tax collector? He's the chief tax collector. So what does that mean?
Collects the most.
Yeah, because he's got what?
Chief ability.
Authority over others. So he has multiple people reporting to him. So it's now no longer just me going out there and collecting taxes. I've now got Reagan working for me. I've got Holly working for me. I've got Jeff working for me. Weston's working for me. And they're all going out to you all and saying, pay me the money. All right? So Zacchaeus is already despised by the Jews. Okay? What else is he? Short. Okay? And so the thing that we have to remember here is that Zacchaeus probably already started off life being kind of despised, looked down on. I mean, figuratively as well as literally. So knew that was coming right after it left the So Zacchaeus, I mean, people are already looking at Zacchaeus and just going, whatever. I mean, and that's the culture that they lived in. I mean, they didn't look at people. They looked at people and basically said, if you don't fit the normal standard of a person, if you're sick, if you're diseased, or whatever else is going on, you guys, if any of that kind of stuff is going on, if you're short, blind, whatever, then obviously you've made some kind of major sin, or your parents made some kind of major sin, and now you are suffering because of it. So Zacchaeus was not a favorable person to begin with, which probably led into him being a tax collector because he probably sat there and thought to himself, what does it matter? I mean, nobody likes me anyway, so if nobody's going to like me, I might as well get some money off of it. So, Zacchaeus was a social outcast because of his size and his career. All right? So, what happens though? Let's see here. Verse 3. What happens?
He wanted to see Jesus and his people.
Yeah. He wanted to see who Jesus was. Now he knows that Jesus is a Jew, but he wants to see him. So what is it about Jesus that makes Zacchaeus want to see Jesus? There's the notes for that one. What is it about Jesus that makes Zacchaeus say, I need to see this guy? Okay, he was curious who Jesus was. Yeah. Why was he curious? The thing that I'm trying to get at here is that Zacchaeus had to have heard something about Jesus that made Zacchaeus in particular, who didn't really care for the Jews, think, I need to get out and see this guy.
Maybe if you can make a blind man see, you can make a short man tall.
I mean, that's possible. I never considered that aspect. But, I mean, it's actually entirely possible. You get surprising comments when you're not expecting them. There was one time where I was asking kids what they thought Samson looked like, and this one kid who was really scrawny and small said, "It was probably me. He probably looked like me." And I was like, "What?" Because the imagination that I've always had of Samson is this big, strong guy or whatever. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, Samson didn't get his strength from working out. He got it just from, the Holy Spirit coming on him. So he actually could have been like this puny little guy that nobody would have expected. Hi, I'm going to talk to you out. Or whatever like that. Anyways, that's digressing. That's for another day. Okay, sorry. Yes?
Maybe, he thought if Jesus would heal these people who have sinned, maybe he could help me.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's all these different stories that are going around and that have been circulating already about Jesus. All right? We know that there's all these different stories about Jesus going specifically to people that are outcasts. and he sits down with them and has a meal. And so this is why Zacchaeus is curious. Because here's this guy who is specifically going out there and visiting with people who have been rejected by society, who have just been looked on as sinners. And he doesn't just sit there and talk to them, he sits down and has a meal with them. And so it's this incredibly powerful statement that that Zacchaeus is hearing about him, and so he's curious. So now we go to the next part, and it says in verse 5, when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. Now, we read that, and we read it with all the background of having read it multiple times before, of having heard the song, Zacchaeus was all right? And we read it from the perspective of, well, Jesus is God. So of course he knows who Zacchaeus is. It's no big deal for Jesus to just come up to the spot and say, Zacchaeus, come down, right? But when you actually take time to put yourself in the shoes of that Zacchaeus, how is this kind of a different thing? I mean, have you met Jesus before? If I was to randomly show up to your school and see you with a friend that I have never met before, and all of a sudden say, I call them out by name and say, I want to eat lunch with you today. Would that be weird for you?
Yes.
Why? Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know them. So it'd be a shock to you. It'd certainly be a shock to them. And if it was just me, then yeah, it'd be a shock to me too, because how do I know this person's name? I've never met them. And so here's Zacchaeus, who's curious about who Jesus is, gets called by Jesus by name. And he doesn't just say, hey, Zacchaeus, how you doing? He calls him down and says, I want to sit down and have a meal with you. And so it's this powerful statement. And whoops, we go through the rest of the passage there. And what's Zacchaeus' response? Jesus sits down and has a meal with him. And what's Zacchaeus' response? Starts at verse 8.
This one says,
They all
but
scared.
Okay. Over here first. Yeah. He's going to pay his money back. What else? Give to the poor. All right. So we're looking at three separate results because of this decision of Zacchaeus to respond to Jesus. The immediate result is that Zacchaeus sits there and acknowledges the fact that he's got more than he needs. And so Zacchaeus immediately says, all right, right now, I'm going to give half my possessions to the poor. Just straight up. And then he says, and if I've cheated anyone, I'm going to pay it back what?
4 times.
4 times. So he's not just doing just a little bit of restoration here. He is going full in. He's going beyond what is required of him to make things right. And so there's an immediate result, there's a short-term result, because as Zacchaeus goes through this, he's going to find out about, well, yeah, I definitely cheated Hayden over here. He only had to give me 11, and I took 100. So that means I cheated Hayden out. See, I'm making it back for Wednesday night here. So, so I made Hayden pay me like what? That's $90, $89. Yeah, $89 more than what was required of him. So 89 times 4. Who's good at math?
Here I got this. 8 times 6, or 8 times 4 would be 32, so then you add a 0, that's 320.
356.
Woo! All right. So that means Hayden Hudson. Have I been calling you Hayden this whole time?
Yes.
I was wondering why people were looking funny. All right. Hudson. Good grief. Hudson has paid me $89 more than he needed. And so I go back and give him $356. All right? He's making things right. But long term, what does that mean?
He's gonna lose a lot of money.
Yeah, he's definitely not going to get as much money. He's the what?
Tax collector.
Not just the tax collector. He's the chief tax collector. So that means he's got all those folks working under him. What does that mean?
Cheated a lot of people.
And he's got people that are cheating people. So he's going to have to do what?
Pay them all.
Huh?
Pay them all.
You have to repay everybody, but he's also got to make sure about the people that are working under him that they're doing what? That they don't cheat people anymore. All right. So here's a short-term result. He gets half of his possessions out right off the bat. There's the long, shorter-term result where he goes out and he starts making amends to people. And then there's the long-term result where he's going to make sure that nobody else that works for him does the same thing. It's things being made right. You know, just last week, I think it was, that we were talking about the example that God gives of the mustard seed. I think it was 2 weeks ago. But Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. Why? How big is a mustard seed? Yeah, it's tiny. But Jesus says it grows into what?
Sorry.
Yeah, a big tree. He calls it the largest of the garden plants because it grows into a tree where birds can come in and perch on it and rest in it. This is an example of the kingdom where something small starts off, but it sets into motion a large chain of events. All right? So Jesus restores Zacchaeus by talking to him and spending time with him. So, while you guys are writing that down, I've got 3 questions for you. You don't have to answer these out loud. If you want to write them down in the margins of your notes, that's fine. If you just want to keep it in your head, that's fine too. But we started off by talking about Zacchaeus, who's a social outcast. So right now, what I want you to do is, in your head, think of somebody who's a social outcast in your circles. Think of somebody that most people have just kind of shunned, don't talk to, and avoid. Okay, go ahead and raise your hand when you've got someone in mind. Okay. So now, just like Zacchaeus was shunned because of his size and because of what he did, think of what might be some causes that have led that person to being an outcast. Sometimes people do stuff on their own. Sometimes people make really bad decisions and nobody wants to be around them. Sometimes people have stuff happen to them. Maybe somebody can't get the nicest clothes, or can't, shows up to school and they don't smell the greatest, or I don't know, whatever it is. And so people just kind of start walking away from them. Maybe they have weird personalities. I can attest, I grew up having a weird personality. because things at home weren't really normal all the time. And so sometimes things just happen to people that lead them into being outcasts. So what might be some things that people might see in you that lead them to be curious about Jesus?
That you're just different from them, like in the way you dress and your personality.
Okay.
The way you act towards others.
Okay.
Said to make them think about Jesus, right?
Say what?
Said to make them think about Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Maybe like if you talk about how much fun you have in the youth group or something like that.
Maybe if you're a Christian.
What do you mean?
Like some people, they won't like hang out with you just because you're a Christian.
That's true. Sometimes that happens. So how might you bring about restoration to that person? How did Jesus bring restoration to Zacchaeus?
He was a friend.
He was a friend. Spent time with him. So how might you bring restoration to somebody that's a social outcast?
Invite him to your group.
Why would you do? Invite him to stuff in general. And spend time with him. Talk with him. Be a friend. You might need to be a friend before you can get them to come to youth group, just because they might not trust you. And see, that's part of Jesus making all things new. Is that the world has set things up a certain way, and Jesus comes to bring things back to where they're supposed to be. And the way that he intended things to be was for us to live in community with each other, to encourage one another, and to love one another as he's loved us. So, let's see here. We stopped with, was it Aiden? Read the last one? Okay, so Bryce, go ahead and pick us back up in verse 48:5. Chapter 19, verse 45. I'm just going to read 45 through 48.
Then he went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold. It is written, he said, it is written, he said, today my house will be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers.
When he was teaching daily in the temple, the chief priests and the scribes and the principal men of the people were seeking to destroy him.
Yet they could not find any way to do it because all the people hung on his words.
All right. So, the merchants were selling stuff in the temple courts. Were they allowed to do that?
No. They were allowed to, but they shouldn't have.
What were they selling in the temple courts?
Animals.
Animals. Why?
Sacrifices?
Huh?
Sacrifices.
Yeah. All right. Say you are a Jew, but you live all the way in Rome. Caitlin, you live in Rome. She's like, I don't mind this scenario. Now you have to go to Jerusalem to make your sacrifice. Yay. So now she is supposed to what? Take a cow or a lamb all the way to Jerusalem? The reason that those merchants were there was so that if it was too difficult to get your sacrifice to Jerusalem, like it would be in Caitlin's case, you didn't have to. Because if Allie lives right there in Jerusalem and has an animal, she can just walk right up. But for Caitlin, it's not going to be that easy. For one, she might have a perfect cow and then start taking it out to Rome or Jerusalem, and maybe along the way it gets sick. Awesome. The cow is no longer worth sacrificing. You drug it all the way for nothing. Nice. You might get all the way to Jerusalem and find out your cow is not pure enough to be sacrificed. Awesome. You have now wasted your time bringing a cow all the way along with you. I don't know how many of you guys have cows or have worked with cows, but I imagine they stink and are a pain to deal with. You might be dragging that cow along, get almost to Jerusalem, and then all of a sudden have bandits strike, take your cow, and now you have no more sacrifice. Awesome. And so the idea was that you could buy your sacrifice there at the temple. That wasn't an issue. It was a convenience, something that was made available to people for the reason of it was going to be difficult. The problem is a couple different things. For one, if Jeff is one of the people at the market and Caitlin comes and brings her animal and is so proud of it, and she says, "This is my cow. I'm ready to sacrifice it to God because I want to honor him. It's a wonderful cow." And Jeff says, "There's a spot right there." "What?" "Yeah, too bad. Doesn't work anymore. Now you have to buy one of mine." Jeff's also not being honest. Because A, the cow might really be fine, and he's just wanting to force Caitlin to buy one of the animals there in the courts. Jeff is also going to overcharge on the animals that you would buy. So Caitlin might only pay, I don't know, $100. I don't know what cows go for right now. But maybe she knows that cows are only worth $100, and Jeff says, "You need to sacrifice today, don't you? That's going to be $10,000. Charging a ridiculous rate for it. Now, Jeff might be working in dollars, but Caitlin over here is coming from Europe, and so she's going to pay in euros. And so she tries to buy the cow with euros, and she says, "Fine, I've got 10,000 euros right here." And Jeff says, "Oh, sorry, I can't take your money. You got to come back with dollars."
Also, just saying, 10,000 euros is a lot more than $10,000.
I know. But so Caitlin says, "All right, fine." So she goes to the exchange person. Hayden is the exchange person. And I got his name right, so I didn't call him Hudson, so there we go. Got that good. All right, so Hayden is the exchange person. So Caitlin walks over to Hayden and says, "Fine, I need to exchange my money." And Hayden says, "Awesome, that's great. Love to help you. It's going to be $1 for every 100 euros. This is the situation that these people are creating. Is all Caitlin wanted to do was come and worship and sacrifice to God. And they had made this into a terrible thing to just make money. And so when Jesus gets in there, that's why he sits there and openly says, "You've made this a den of robbers." The religious leaders were taking advantage of people who were just trying to offer sacrifices. And so when Jesus accuses them of being a den of robbers, he's actually saying the same thing that Jeremiah accused the people of in his day. And so Jeremiah goes out there and he says to the people, "This is a den of robbers." And what he's saying is, you guys are walking in here acting like everything's okay. You're acting like, oh yes, we serve God, we are wonderful people, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, you're cheating the poor. You're taking advantage of them. You're not taking care of anybody. You're going up to a widow and stealing her land, something that was never supposed to have been done. You're going up to a person that has no other source of income and saying, you're going to owe me 20% interest. Oh, you can't pay it. Great, now you're my slave for life. And Jesus is saying, you guys are doing the same thing. You're a den of robbers. You're coming here and acting like this is all perfectly okay, like you're okay with me. I am not okay with you. And he's specifically calling them out. Nothing in that court is fine. And so the thing that we have to remember is that as God's people, we need to make sure that we're not just claiming the name of Christ, but that we're being transformed by Christ's presence within us. It doesn't do any good if all we do is walk around and tell people, yeah, I'm a Christian, I go to Third and Civil War Church, I am a member of the youth group, I participate in the activities, and blah, 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 blah. If it's not changing anything about you, it doesn't make a difference, guys. If something in you isn't changing to be closer to God's holy nature, then none of it matters. The devos, the classes, coming for worship, none of it matters. If you're not being changed to become more like God. So for today, Jesus comes to bring things back to where they were meant to be. And yes, I realized this morning there's only one spot there, so just cram the word meant into the one spot. But he came back to where he comes to bring things back to where they were meant to be. And sometimes this means lifting up, sometimes it means encouraging people, and sometimes it means tearing down. We saw Jesus go and restore Zacchaeus by lifting him up, by encouraging him, by spending time with him. But Jesus also restores the temple and that whole situation to where it should be by tearing it down. But the result is always to be brought closer back to him. And so that's what we need to focus on. All right, today, so we've got the youth Christmas party, $1 limited gift exchange. Just find something hilarious to bring, throw it in a box, wrap it up. I'm really looking forward to what some of you guys bring this year. So chips, Brianna, Maddie, Jeff, you guys make sure to bring the chips. Case and Hayden, you said you'd bring veggies. Hey, Riley.
Hi.
Fruit, Hudson and Reagan, you guys said you were going to take care of that. Dips and salsa, Aiden and Trinity. Make sure you bring dips for the chicken too. I've got honey barbecue and I've got buffalo. But if you want to bring some dips for people just whatever, that'd be good as well. Dessert, Riley, Eli, Allie. Drinks are Holly, Dave, and Kobe. Weston, I don't know why that. We still. I'm not sure why that E got capitalized. Anyways, so that's tonight. If some of you guys are available after morning worship, we're gonna try and see if we can start moving stuff out of that room this afternoon. If not, we'll just take care of it tonight after evening worship. From what Randy was telling me, it shouldn't take too much. Everything's gonna go from that side into that room over there. Okay? So, we're starting the process. Also, if Portales kids, if you're available tomorrow to help with Donna Carpenter's roof, we probably need to start working on that ASAP. There's a lot to do. Hit me up. Are Dora, you guys out?
No.
Okay, so then yeah, you won't be able to help just yet. Okay. We'll find out where we're at and keep you guys posted. I know Thursday and Friday we're gonna need to do a lot of that. So, okay. All right, we'll
I'll probably help with no plan.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we need to get out there. So, oh yeah, tonight also we're gonna do that wrapping paper game again. So, we wrapped Abby and I to see who can come up with the best wrap or whatever. So we're gonna do that again. I've got wrapping paper, bows, ribbon, and I'll have tape for everybody. But if you want to bring like a secret weapon, something to increase your team's chance of winning, go ahead. We're gonna do it, guys and girls again. So, also don't forget about the lock-in 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Bring snacks and drinks for everyone to share. Invite your friends. So, I think that should do it. So, all right. Love you guys. You're awesome. Look forward to seeing you tonight.